everyone, PushingUpRoses here, and today we're discussing Torin's Passage, an adventure game developed by Sierra Online and released in 1995. It was designed primarily by Al Lowe, known for other Sierra titles like Leisure Suit Larry and Freddy Farkas, but before those titles he also worked on a few children's games like Donald Duck's Playground and The Black Cauldron. I'm of course preempting you with this because if you only know Al Lowe for his lowbrow sex and fart jokes, it seemed very weird that Torin's Passage is aimed at children. Turns out that Lowe's wacky slapstick comedy style, hard quotes, works very well with this type of game. A lot of people consider Torin's Passage a gem from the Sierra catalog, though after playing it, it's more like a piece of rock salt, or halite as we rock experts say. I'm not convinced the game is as good as viewing it through rose-colored glasses may suggest, so let's see why that is. If you can't tell, this game is heavily inspired by Disney's cartoon animated movies of the early to mid-90s. And if you don't think so, you're wrong, because it's in the Torin's Passage design document, right there, alongside Mrs. Doubtfire.
Hello!
The game is supposed to be family-friendly. Kids could enjoy it, while providing adults with some mature humor. You play as Torin, aka Chiseled McStudley, a farm boy with a past. I personally find this story a little muddled, but I will do my best to paraphrase. Some evil guy wants to kidnap little baby Torin, but rats, he just missed him because his nanny took him outside for a walk. Instead, he murders Torin's parents with the power of magical green cocaine. Cut to current day, and Torin is all grown up and working on a farm with his foster parents, who he doesn't know are not his biological parents yet. They get trapped in some green jello and whisked away. A completely innocent and not suspicious looking bystander said he saw what happened, telling Torin that an evil sorceress named Licentia took his parents and he must travel to the lands below to find her. Now why does this story sound familiar? Oh right, because it's every fairy tale ever written. Assisting you on your point-and-click journey is Boogle. He's a Boogle, clearly, that's what he is. He can turn into things and help you complete puzzles. You can also squish him. Playing as Torin, you are to traverse the different lands in the world of Strata to find Licentia, and while doing that you're supposed to meet an array of wacky and funny characters while solving various puzzles. That is in fact what you do, but as much as I hate to say this, I did not enjoy this game. It left me kinda cold, sadly, and I know what you're thinking, so let me say it before you do. But Roses, you loved King's Quest VII, and that isn't even a good game, and how can you think that Torin's Passage is worse? Well, since you brought it up, I'll do a little compare-contrast to explain my qualms with Torin's Passage using King's Quest VII, which came out a year before and is very similar in style. Let's start with the most obvious thing, the animation. So here's what we're dealing with in King's Quest VII. And here's what we have in Torin's Passage.
Oh no, you misunderstand. I'm not from the lands below. I want to go there. So you do know how to get there?
I'm gonna go ahead and say, yes, Torin's Passage is a step up here. The characters seem to have a lot of expression and there's definitely more detail. There are close-ups of characters as opposed to King's Quest VII, where you only get to see close-ups in the introduction. Ugh. But for as whimsical as this game is supposed to be, I feel like the world itself is a letdown. Interesting that this title seems to take a lot of inspiration from Sierra games past, particularly King's Quest VII, but it somehow still does not work. The worlds in King's Quest VII are extremely memorable. Ooga Booga Land, Etheria, the underground troll lair, they're all very painterly in style, colorful and elaborate, and they are filled with characters to interact with. I feel like the backgrounds in Torin's Passage are just kinda drab, and though there are some characters to talk to early on, they aren't nearly as interesting as previous Sierra titles. And you'd think for a family-friendly game they would really go crazy with silly characters, but some chapters don't even have characters to interact with. At one point, Torin travels to this lava-type land, and it's just a ton of orange and brown colors, mazes, and literally walking across a scrolling screen without a single character to talk to, cause you know what every game needs? A maze. People love mazes. No one has ever voiced a complaint about an adventure game maze. I love them. They're great. Said no one. The characters you do meet are pretty fun, except for the bitter nuts. Oh my god. Yeah, there's a part in this game that randomly satirizes old sitcoms, and it goes on for far, far too long, and if I hear that laugh track one more time, I will go postal.
I'm Mrs. Bitternut, and this is what's left of my husband, Mr. Bitternut. So, what's that thing in your purse?
Why, that's my little buddy, Boogle.
It's not that I don't think kids would understand this segment because, like most people in my age group, we grew up on Nick at Night, but it is still crazy annoying.
Hello, young man.
Did he touch you, boy?
No! Bad joke! Bad! No! I also feel like the puzzles are a bit too hard for children, but this game does come with a hint system that actually is pretty helpful. I could do without these guys, though.
Stop.
They only move if you wait around too long, Torin.
Well, that's not fair! Look at what they did! I am not a fan of logic puzzles, and this game is a mix of those and inventory object ones. Torin himself is borderline annoying and has a personality akin to concrete.
Where the peat moss groans in the light of 3 full moons, and those crystal mountains summon my heart home.
He's kind of a mishmash of other Sierra protagonists. He's a little bumbling like Roger Wilco, but not so bumbling that it's comedic, and he's a little heroic like Prince Alexander, but not so heroic that it'd be considered brave or charming. I think the biggest issue with this game is the fact that it feels very incomplete. This game was made with the idea that there will be sequels, which you should never do because in the case that the sequels don't happen, you end up with a very abrupt game with loose ends. They introduce a romantic interest for Torin named Lena. After about 5 minutes, they're in love, which is about 4 minutes more than what it took for Alexander and Cosima to fall in love, but this character is never seen again. Not at the end of the game, and, well, never again, because there were no sequels. However, tonally, I think the game works well, and the voice acting is really good. Torin is played by Michael Shapiro, who you may know as Barney Calhoun from the Half-Life titles, and many other games over the years. This game is also more child-friendly than I had remembered. I thought I had recalled it was a little more adult, but it's perfectly wacky, and if I were a kid in the mid-90s, I would probably love it. I'm not a fan of Al Lowe's more raunchy humor. I think he shines when he's writing child-friendly slapstick. The characters seem like they do come straight from an animated cartoon.
I'm Torin. Torin Farman.
Farmhand? Yeah, you look like a farmhand.
Farmhand. Good one, Slim.
Thanks, Slime. I-5.
All right.
But I also think that I wouldn't be able to beat it as a kid, even with the assistance of an adult. And might I add, these are some of the most obnoxious puzzles I've ever seen. I actually think in terms of difficulty, King's Quest VII is more kid-friendly. Both games use a continue method though. When you die, you automatically get the option to try again without the consequence of losing progress. After traveling through the lands below, you eventually do find Licentia, who is actually Torin's nanny and has been unfairly accused of the murder of his parents years and years ago. She had been working under the influence of Torin's evil uncle and had grown bitter and angry over time. And then she notices Torin's, tattoo, I guess. This thing has literally never been mentioned before, and realizes that Pecans, the evil uncle, needs to die. Man, even the name Licentia reminds me of King's Quest VII. The villain's name in that game is Militia. You know, a name that stems from an existing word that suits the character. Though if I may be blunt, if Licentia is coming from the word licentious, then I'm not seeing it, even before the character became bitter. Though she could be a sex bomb underneath that nanny outfit, who am I to judge? And in the most abrupt ending on the planet, Licentia manages to kill Pecan and reconnect with Torin.
Torin.
Have some green cocaine. The design document states that there was a more involved ending, and that was very clearly axed, because this literally goes from a screen in which you're back on the farm with your foster parents and Boogle to credits. It's very lackluster. But despite all of its weirdness, I can still say that this is a very memorable game, and I think that's why people cling to it. I remember the trailer for my King's Quest collection and being rather excited by it. For some reason, I never did purchase it, but I do remember that every time I called the Sierra hint line, much to my parents' dismay, the very first thing I would hear is the automated voice saying, "For Torin's passage, press 1, as if the hint line was part of the advertisement. I remember that so distinctly because I called that hint line many times. That is sadly my only connection to the game, so I have no nostalgia for it, and so on its own, for me, it's not that great, but I give it props for the slapstick humor, some of the animated characters, and definitely the voice acting. Even today, it's still a really unique looking game from its time because this style never really took off. There were a few standouts like Curse of Monkey Island and Leisure Suit Larry 7, but otherwise it's not common, so it stayed intriguing looking. Out of all of the games with this similar style, my vote still goes to King's Quest VII for its beautiful artwork, better puzzle design, and more developed side characters. And every time I see the bitter nuts, it just chips away at my like for this game even more. But if you want to give it a shot and see what you think, I do recommend it. You might see something in it that you like, or it might be a fun time with your kid. And Boogle is adorable and gets his own inventory system called the Boogle Tory. I'm not making that up, that's the official name for Boogle's inventory system. Anyway, I leave you with more bitter nuts because if I have to endure it, so do you. Enjoy!
Holly, take a look at this guy. This is what a real man looks like. Holly? Oh, honey, don't mind him. He's just acting his IQ.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video on Torin's Passage. If you want more adventure game fun, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check the annotations. To bug me on social media, check the description. It's all there. Thanks again and see you guys in the next one.